Hi, my name is Greg with Rocky Mountain Tiny Houses. We're based out of Durango, Colorado. We're here at the Colorado Tiny House Festival this weekend, and my wife and I brought our own personal house. This is, it's not quite done, we're about 90% complete, but we're calling this house the San Juan. It's got quite a few interesting features and I'd like to show you. So we're on the outside real quick. This is a 24-foot trailer, technically corner to corner is 24 feet. The TrailerMate did some custom touches for us. They added a 30-degree V-nose, and then from the V-nose we tilt up about 15 degrees too, so it's a compound angle, kind of looks like the bow of a ship. You know, I wasn't trying to go for a ship, but it kind of turned out that way, and everyone says it looks like a ship. And I'm like, well, okay. This is our full-time home. We're gonna move in. We've been living tiny in my smaller house, the first one I built. It's a little 16-foot, 2 people, 2 dogs, really cramped. You know, it was never designed for 2 people. So when Steph and I got married, we kind of knew we'd be building a bigger, nicer house for the both of us, and so this is the result of that. And so, you know, being a professional builder, you want a nice house, you might as well do some cool things. And, you know, I've got the tools and the know-how to do some of these things. So I was saying it was 24, but it feels more like a 26 is kind of, well, we tell people it's more like a 26-foot house. So we've got 90% reclaimed material on the outside. So on the passenger side wall, that's all barnwood. And we'll see these portholes from the inside in a little bit, but those are, you know, real authentic portholes in a geometric pattern. The barnwood is a sunray kind of shape to match up with the roof line. We did it's reclaimed corrugated wainscot, and that wraps around most of the house. And then on the rear part, that is, I've always called it 5V crimp. Some people call it 5-star. It's a real popular roofing for barns and agricultural buildings back in the day, but we found some of that in Denver at a repurposed store, and thought, why not? It looks cool. So that's sort of the siding. The roofing is all new material. I don't like to put reclaimed stuff up there. I need the durability, and that's just corrugated, 7/8 corrugated, 26 gauge, a little thicker. So we thought it would be troublesome trying to bend it to the radius of the roof, but it actually, we just started in the low spot and worked our way out, and it really just conformed kind of nicely, and we didn't have to do anything special, really. It was gentle enough slope that it fit. You know, another cool thing about the outside, the French doors, those, you know, the door is your portal into your home, and so a lot of people say, even if you're building big homes, that's one of those things you should put money into. You know, it's curb appeal. It's like, that's your entrance. And so we put a lot of time making these doors. They're all handmade in my shop. My local glass guy was able to cut water jet that tempered glass for the door panes. And we also got really nice hardware. We didn't want just basic hardware, so you'll see we'll do some close-ups. It's kind of a Victorian French knob sets, and then even the hinges are pretty fancy too. It's not my typical style, but my wife, she's a Francophile, and so she likes some of the old European stuff and flair, so that's kind of where you'll see some other touches like that too. Also, you know, notable is the fold-down porch. So when we travel, the porch folds up. And then the awning, which is 2 solar panels, it's an aluminum frame, 2 solar panels, that folds down on top of. And I'll get you a picture of what that looks like when it's all folded up. And you can't tell from where we're at, but that portion of the house is actually recessed 3 inches, so there's a little offset so that all that stuff can fit in that recess, and we're not sticking out past our 8'6", because we framed the house at 8'4". Our siding is right at 8'6". You know, we might even be just a pinch over in some places. So we were really pushing the width limit on that. So I did not want my porch or awning to stick out past that. So that's why the wall is recessed in a little bit. The backside has a really cool decorative feature. So that's all shakes on the rear, and it has a color gradient, 7 shades of blue. So we start with a near white, and it gets darker towards the big circle window, and then it lightens back up towards the top. Yeah, it's just this really cool, it's a real simple thing to do, but the effect is just really eye-popping. TrailerMate also welded on a hitch receiver on the rear, because we knew we'd be traveling with this house a little bit. So, you know, as you can see, we got a bike rack, we got our 2 bikes, and in between, you know, shows, we can just hop on a bike and get a little exercise, take the dogs for a run. And that's kind of a nice feature, especially if you're towing with something. If you don't have room on your truck to carry extra stuff, that's a good way to carry bikes or boats or extra cargo, whatever else you might need. That's the main things on the outside: roof shape, materials, and porch awning. Like I was saying earlier, that's 720 watts is 2 panels. So when we're on the road, that's enough power for all our lights, our fans, our laptop. It's not quite enough for the fridge and some bigger, you know, we'll have a mini split in here too. It's not enough for that, but for those things, you know, we'll have enough wattage for that. And then when we're parked back home, that's our primary parking is back in Durango. I've got 3 more panels. It's another 750 watts, and then we're about 1.5 kilowatts at that point. And then with the batteries that we have, that's a big enough system to run the fridge and the mini split and everything, basically. They're Centennial. They're 400 amp hours. They're really big 6-volt batteries. They add 500 pounds to the house, but it's kind of, for being off grid, it's kind of a necessary evil to tote those things around. But so we got, you know, 1600 amp hour total power on those things. I want to say they were probably like 500 a piece. What would be really cool, and I think this will happen in a few years with the lithium technology comes about, you can get twice the capacity for half the weight, but also like 3 times the cost. So, right now. But the trade-off, I think, is worth it. So, well, we're gonna go inside. So now we're on the inside of the house, and if you thought the outside was cool, you know, we're just getting started. There's really, they say the devil's in the details, and this house is no exception to that. We just went crazy on the details because we weren't having to pay a builder, so time wasn't an issue for us. And some projects, I'm like, well, I don't care if it takes a week. Let's just do it and make it nice and cool and share that with people. So, you know, perhaps the most unique feature on the inside is the elevator bed. And people have done elevator beds before, and we're not the first one to do it, but you know, we wanted a slightly different take. You know, most people are using garage door motors and motorized things. We decided to do a manual system, even though we're off grid and we probably will have power all the time. I'm like, well, if something fails and I don't have power, and then we're on the road and we want to go to bed, and I can't let the bed down, you know. So I came up with, it's all garage door parts. It's a chain hoist that's geared down to make it easier. And then the drums, the little pulleys, those are just the torsion bar on a garage door. That's the drums that pull the cable. So it's all off-the-shelf parts. I had to make some of the brackets to mount it to the wall. You know, that was a little tricky, but in the end, it works pretty well. I'll show you. These guys, they flip out so that the bed has a spot to rest on. The back corners are fixed, so we don't have to flip those. So the chain keep right here, that keeps it from coming down. It will come down on its own. The bed's about 150 pounds, and so it's not terribly heavy, but it's heavy enough that you don't want to be under it when it comes down. So that's all we do to let it down. And we have been living it the past 2 weeks on the road, and it's quite nice to sleeping in this thing because we don't need a ladder. We can both just hop up here, queen size bed, 2 people, and then we don't we do wake up, and we've got these 360 views. These big windows on, you know, a circle window, and these 2 big square windows all around us. So it's just like, it's actually, we don't have blinds, so it's almost a little too much. Sun's been rising at like 5:30. We don't usually get up till 7, so it's been kind of waking up early with the sun. It's cool, but it's a little too bright. We're gonna get some window coverings. She's already picked out some pleated insulated blinds to come in here. Now this guy, we're not quite sure. I think it's just gonna end up being some kind of drape that you can't make a circle blind, so I think it'll be some sort of drape that we hang up here somehow. It's a really easy method. This material is just 1/4" pine, tongue and groove. They call it a V-edge. You can buy it at Home Depot. I buy it in bulk. I get like pallets because we do so much of this stuff. I get a discount, and it's all over the shop. And well, it's thin, it's light, and this is you'll see a lot of this stuff in tiny houses all the time. But what you do for the whitewash, so that like you said, you can let some of the wood grain pop through. Like there, you can see a knot, you can see some of the variations in the wood. You can buy a pickling stain off the shelf, a Minwax or some other products out there. Or you can go the old school route, and that's just get some white paint, water it down 50-50 with water. So just a 1-to-1 mixture, and it just really washes the paint down. And then that's how you get your whitewash. And then it is kind of a thinner finish, so it would be a good idea to put clear coat. Just at least one, if not two. So that clear coat will help it stay a little more durable. You won't, fingerprints and you rub things all the time. It just keeps it a little cleaner. Well, let me back up. The back wall is actually just drywall, 1/4-inch drywall. So we have SIP framing. It's a panel construction. It's OSB skins, both sides. So we're not having to try to hit studs everywhere. That's one of the main reasons I like SIPs, because it just gives you a solid substrate in the entire house. And that made putting these brackets up easier. I didn't have to have a stud. I can screw straight to those SIPs, straight in the wall. You just have to use coarse thread screws, and they give you numbers, the SIP company. They're like, this screw can hold, pull out is 250 pounds, shear is, 1,000 pounds. And so you can do the math, and I've got like 10 screws per bracket. I know they're going to hold just based on the ratings from the SIP company. So she wanted the back wall to be sort of an accent wall. So it's a minty kind of color with some, decorative trim to sort of give it some definition, and it's not so flat. Both when the bed is down and when it's up, you see both aspects of that. So the ceiling, coming back to this is actually locally milled aspen. It's a shiplap. This is not an off-the-shelf product. The thing with this curvy roof is that you need a wood that can twist a little bit. It's thin to conform to the shape of the roof. And because we have a warped surface, you can't use I couldn't run the boards that way, because what happens, it changes. The length of my rafter is continuously changing. So at the lowest slope, that's the short rafter, and at the longest part, that's the longest rafter. So my distance can be anywhere from 42 inches to 52 inches. So the trick to get around that is to run them at a 45-degree angle. So they'll start in a corner and then they'll wrap around and they'll fit that shape. And that's why you see them at an angle like that. We had to do the same thing for the roof decking. You can't just use a flat sheet of plywood. We had to rip it into 8-inch strips and then put it at a 45 and then trim all the ends off. So it's a lot of cutting, a lot of time. Sometimes it's really hard to just pull a tape on those measurements. You sort of just have to get it close and then see if it fits and then chop it, cut long, take a blade off here and there. So it was painstaking, but the result, it's just mind-blowing. We've done this on one other house before, so it was kind of a no-brainer to just use it again. It's actually the laziest thing I could have done. Well, and the wife, she wanted, it's white cotton rope. We didn't want plastic rope. We didn't want a brown manila rope because she wanted to keep it light and airy in here. I can jump off, but she bought this little antique step stool, which makes it a lot easier and safer too. But we're young couple, athletic. I don't mind just hopping off, unless the dog, the dogs, when we go to bed, that's where they sleep. And we don't have the other bed in here right now because we took it out, but I guess I'll raise it back up and show you some of the other stuff, and then you get to see how it works going up. It's not hard. It's only about 30 pounds of force because of the gearing. Right there, and that keeps it from coming undone accidentally. So when it's up, then we have our living room configuration. So basically we got double function in this space. And that keeps your trailer shorter. You know, this is a way to have a downstairs bedroom without pulling your trailer another 6 or 8 feet. So you're just making better use of the vertical space. I mean, it's similar to a loft, but we don't have to climb it, which is the nice feature about it. You know, I've lived tiny for 5 years. A little A-frame, tiny loft, real small, and a ladder, and I'm over it. So this is so much better than having to climb a ladder, or stairs for that matter. Our living room is real simple. It's a built-in couch. We've got, the cushions aren't in yet. We ordered them, so this will be, she picked some kind of suave gray color to go on the cushions. And back here, we're gonna have a little pool. This guy, we've done this in a few other builds. This is our little laptop storage, so that flips open. This will fit 2 laptops in here. Charging station. Just comes back down, then it's an armrest. I didn't necessarily want to do a glue up here, but I ran out of wood, and so I had all these scraps laying around, so I glued them up and made that little guy. We've got, and then matches, there's some other glue ups you'll see in the house too. That's one of those little details, you know, that takes more time, but you know, it gives it a little pop when it's done. So flipped around, I'm in the kitchen space now. And probably the beginning of the kitchen space is the dining area. We have 2 dogs. We needed a spot for dog food storage, so that's all dog food storage right there. And we've been on the road, so you know, it's actually being used. And then when it's not storage, it's a bench. This table is there's a slot that we built into the cabinet right here. It's real simple. It's nothing. There's no hardware. With this table, we can move it around. You know, I have to build a leg for the corner when it's all the way out because it can't quite hold itself up. But you know, at this configuration, we can put 2 people here. We've got another bar stool. We could potentially seat 5 people at this little dining thing, and it's real simple. And then when we want to reclaim the space back, it just shoves back in, and then it's out of the way. Maybe a little extra prep space, or you know, for the show, even just right here, it's enough to do some work on. Laptop space, desk space, or just one person having breakfast or dinner. Yeah, if it's shoved all the way in, it ain't coming out. I mean, I'm putting a little bit of force on it. It's not moving, so I hope it stays that way. I think over time it's going to just start wearing out, but we'll cross that bridge when we get there. This is probably one of the, from the show, the feedback, this is like, everyone loves the counter. That's like the next best feature other than the elevator bed. This is well, I don't know if they call it a Texas black mesquite. I didn't know that such a thing existed, black mesquite, but you know, I really wanted a mesquite counter for the Southwest flare and the turquoise inlay. And so we shopped and shopped, and we just couldn't find a big enough piece, good enough price, the character we were looking for. Of all the places I looked, eBay happened to be the source to find this. There was this guy down in Palmer, Texas. He just has his own little mill and just sells pieces of whatever he's got going on. He had just enough. This is glued. It's not one piece. I had to glue it up. But from all the pieces, I think I only had one little square left of scrap. That's how like down to the wire we got. And I bought every piece he had. So it worked out. It's beautiful. The turquoise, everyone wants to know how he did it. Super simple. So the wood has natural cracks in it. And I was able, there's a gem store in Durango. I was able to purchase some raw turquoise. They call it Sleeping Beauty. You know, it's a really sought after turquoise in the Southwest. And you just crush it, put it in a pipe and crush it. Put all the pieces in there and you epoxy over it. That holds it. Sand it flush. And then we've got a really nice Murdoch's finish over this stuff. So it's like one of the best finishes we could possibly find for a wood counter. Murdoch's, yeah. We've got a farmhouse sink. It's my understanding they call it a granite composite, so I think they're taking a natural white granite, crushing it, and then they're gluing it back up. So it's an engineered stone, kind of like silestone, similar thing. It's natural, but it's engineered so that it's tougher and it's more stable. And you know, it is heavy, but it's not as heavy as like some of the stones. bowls that we've seen before. She wanted white. That's the main reason we went with this. We could not find a white metal sink, or acrylic is going to scratch and ding. So for us, this was the best option. It's a 24-inch engineered stone sink. We bought, I think it's Depot actually carries, it's not a stock item. It was a special order, but it's about $450. I've seen some, apron sinks go for 1,000, even in a stainless or copper or something. So it's actually, that's another reason we picked it, was price. It was the best price we could find. We made all the cabinets in-house because it's, we're over the wheel wells, and it's a pain in the butt taking a stock cabinet, modifying it for fenders, so it's just easier to build our own. Plus with the apron sink's one of those other things, it's hard to get a stock cabinet that fits an apron, so we just ended up making all of it. But that's cool. We get more storage. I get this little feature I can put in here. I get 4 drawers. These are RV slides, so when I'm driving, they won't come out. You got to really yank it to initiate it. The RV slides, I buy them from RV, like adventurerv.net or something like that. There's an RV specific store. Stock cabinets, if you have them in your tiny house, they're just going to roll. You're going to get to where you're going, and they're just going to be like that. We don't have it done yet, but this bay, this whole thing will be a pull-out, and that's our trash and our recycling. Steph is always real big. You got to have spots for trash, recycling, shoes, dog food, and laundry. That's the other one. So just everyday things that a lot of tiny house dwellers don't really think about until they actually get into their house, and they're like, "Oh man, I didn't think about that." And so, trash, recycling, dog food if you have dogs, laundry. Those are 4, and shoes. Those are the 5 big things she always talks about. So that's sort of the cabinetry. Real simple. You'd be surprised how hard it is to find a range that just has really plain, simple lines. They always have extra bends and stuff that just kind of makes it clunky looking. And we wanted something really just plain Jane, and we found this Broan. I think it was maybe $200, but it fit this space. It was exactly what we were looking for. It's got lights, fan, and we always tell our customers, you always want to direct vent your range hood. You don't want a recirculator. Cut the hole in the wall. Get that smoke out of your house. It's going to be, otherwise you're going to smell like bacon and cooking oil all the time. So cut the hole, get the air out. Built this little storage thing above. So, the hood's through the wall. It doesn't come up through here. So that gives us some more storage, and that was another reason for the step stool, so we could get up to the, we can reach this, but I can't reach that top one, so the stool should get us up there. Other than this upper cabinet, we have this shelf. It's like almost 7 feet long. It's just one open shelf above this big window we put in. This part's fixed for just a nice big view. Whether you're in the kitchen or you're at the dining, you can just look out that way. And then this guy will open up so we can get a little fresh air, maybe chunk some kitchen scraps at the chickens or something. So Stephanie really resisted the wood countertop, especially next to the sink. She's like, "Oh, maintenance, I can't do that. I need something tough." So this was sort of our compromise. I got the wood, she got the silestone. So this spot here, for whatever the heck she's doing, chopping things, acidic mixtures that could damage the wood, flour, pounding, whatever. This thing can take whatever the heck you throw at it. So it's, heat, you can take the pan right off and put it down. This stuff is rated for that. That would definitely damage the wood. So that was our solution to having that do-it-all workspace that the wood couldn't handle. So we only have 2 propane appliances, the range and the water heater, on-demand water heater. Yeah, so propane, typically a furnace is a good option for tiny house heat, and we still could do propane, but we prefer it. Colorado, it's still kind of a rustic, especially part where and wood stoves are very popular, and then that also gives you the option, that is a completely off-grid option. Propane is kind of off-grid, but if you're in a really cold place and you run out of propane, you're screwed. So the wood stove, unless you're in a fire ban, but in the wintertime you're not because there's snow everywhere. So, and in our part of the state, wood stove is a really good option. And we decided to go with the Kimberly. You know, it's the most expensive stove you could possibly get. They're usually like $4,000. They cut us a little deal since it's a show house. Yeah, very expensive, but it's also the most efficient. It puts out the most heat with the least amount of wood. And part of that is the design. It has secondary combustion, so a lot of times a wood stove, you burn the wood and the gas just goes straight up the flue. And there's still a lot of energy that can be captured from that. And so this thing will do that. It'll take that secondary gas and ignite it and try to get as much, you know, joules and watts out of that wood as it possibly can. So, well, the vent comes out the back. So like I said, we're not quite done. We got a few more weeks. The chimney just comes out the back, straight up through the roof. You know, everyone keeps asking me to go through the wall or is there something under the thing here. No, it just goes straight up. We don't have it in right now. But we wanted to still, you know, show people for the show what it's going to feel like. So under the stove, we'll keep all our wood storage down here. This little overhang, when you first come in, this is like shoes that we're just wearing more often, you know, daily. We could just chuck them under there. And then it also, the goal was to be able to sit here too when the fire is running, but I think it might be a little too close. So we haven't fired up yet, so we don't know, but we'll see. That was the goal. It's all tile, Portuguese tile that she found on special somewhere. As Stephanie bought that. And, you know, a lot of people ask us about tile. How does it hold up with road travel? And it holds up fine. It's all a matter of the details once again. You got to we use a product called OmniGrip. That's the adhesive. It's a modified thin set. And that stuff is bomber. It is so good. It will not, I mean, it's slightly flexible, but the holding power is just incredible. We had to like redo a tile on the subway, and it got a nick in it, so we had to try to, I had a crowbar, I could not pull that tile off. I had to bust it with the hammer and chip it out. That's how good that stuff is. And then, of course, your grout, you want to use a modified grout. It has like a latex, and it's flexible too. So this above the tile, it's just a little decorative metal screen so that we don't have to stare at the side of our refrigerator all the time. And it you know, mission accomplished. You can't tell that there's a fridge back there, even unless you can see the door here, but yeah, it works nice. So now we're into our food storage. That's another thing for Steph. You know, we've been on the road, so we've got some stuff in here. But there's two of them. That breaks up the weight of having one big one. And then sometimes you don't need to pull the whole thing out. You just need to access a portion. So upper and a lower. It's all the cleaning supplies for the show. And these just, you know, these are butter. Works really well. Next to the pantry, we're moving into our closet area. So this is all, we did all this woodwork. I have a jig for cutting dovetails. And I wanted to, you know, have some sort of decorative edges to the woodwork in here. This is all Southwest walnut, cut from like Arizona. So it's a little lighter than like a Midwest walnut. And you get that variation. Some people would never know that's walnut, but you know, you see it next to that, and just an interesting, you know, again, sort of a homage to Southwest. So Steph has her closet here. That's all her. She can do whatever, you know, clothes and storage here. And then we have a his and a hers. So I've got 5 drawers and she's got 5 drawers. And these are cool. We didn't put hardware in these. It's just old school wood slides. Because, well, it's simpler for one. Cheaper. I don't have to buy, you know, $15 a set. And then for 3, anytime you're adding hardware, you're losing a 1/2 inch on each side. So you lose an inch total over that. And so this is a way to sort of get, every inch does count in a tiny house. So that's sort of a really easy way to do that. Yeah, these didn't budge the entire trip because there's no ball bearings, you know, so there is enough friction to hold them, and then, but it's not so much that it's just a pain in the butt to pull them. You do have to pull a little harder than a normal drawer. Sometimes less is more. Simple things go a lot further. Opposite this closet is my closet. This is also the guts of the house, so the water heater's in here, the electric panel. We're going to have off-grid water, so we'll have a pump. Well, the pump is in here. The tank will sit on top of the loft and help it feed water a little better. And then the batteries, those big 4 batteries at 500 pounds, they're going to sit in here too. But I still have enough room at the top to put on my shirts. And then this would be like underwear and shorts and socks, stuff like that. So the very front of the house is the bathroom. That is our barn door that we made from, we had a bunch of scraps of barn wood from the siding on the outside. So we took a lot of the scraps and I make a little jig that cuts those at the right angle, and you just glue them up and put them in there. Yeah, sunray pattern. And then this is just plexiglass. We didn't want to put real glass in case it broke or something, but a little lighter. And you can buy a film that you stick to the plexi, so it gives it that frosted appearance for privacy, but you still get some light coming through. This is all off-the-shelf hardware. Sometimes in tiny houses, you don't have the height you need to put those big, commercial barn door rollers, so you can make your own stuff like that. Just a piece of steel, a little ball bearing roller. It's a pulley. I stole it from a pulley, and then a strap, and just put a bolt, and it works pretty well. I don't have my stops in yet, but it still works. So the bathroom, it's one of the biggest bathrooms I've seen in a tiny house, and a lot of that has to do with the V-nose. Like I said, we got 30 degrees coming in, and then the wall goes up like that too. So even though I'm 24 feet to here, I'm cheating, and I'm gaining quite a bit more space. And that also lets the tub, because the tub is angled, so it lets the tub get shoved further up against the wall. And then that angle lets it do that too. We didn't have to put it this way. We didn't have to put it, that way. We could angle it and sort of borrow some more space to get in here. So full soaking tub. It's about $900 on Signature Hardware. And Steph found this cool Victorian faucet. We haven't tried it out yet, but it looks cool.
And then it looks like you have a shower option there. Is that something you're just gonna?
Yeah. So we got a, bath or wash the dogs with that guy. We got to find. You can get another piece like this that mounts to the ceiling, and that would go there. That's how that would work for shower configuration. A little I-beam track for the curtains to come around. We got to stiffen it up a little, but mostly functional right now. The sink, so we got another piece of live edge mesquite that we found locally, and it was almost just the right shape to fit the space. We had to cut it just a little so we didn't knock anything over here, but just kind of naturally had that shape. Steph, this is just a bowl. Steph, it's nothing, it looks kind of like it is supposed to be a sink, but it's just a fancy bowl. Cut a hole in it, silicone the drain in. We're not set yet because that's one of those things we got to finish, but you can see there, that's how you sort of do that trick. And then we'll silicone that and it'll sit on the wood. Simple vessel sink. I don't know where she found this thing, this dragon handle. It's English, and it's also, that means the threads aren't American, they don't fit, so I had to put a piece of plastic in there and cross thread it to get it to seal, to convert it back to American thread. And then we're not hooked up on the bottom side either, but we've got this crazy little angled door with chevron type pattern, so we got a little storage, and then all the pipes and guts will be in there for that guy. Nature's Head toilet, nothing special there. But the real cool thing about the bathroom is the penny floor. So Steph, it took her about 3 days to lay all of these pennies. And it's just epoxy, about an 1/8 inch layer of marine grade epoxy over the pennies, and that's what ties it and seals it. So pretty dazzling effect. So this spot here, there'll be a linen cabinet or hutch. We're trying to find an antique that fits the space, but it's a really hard space to deal with. So I think we're going to end up making something, but it'll be full height all the way up to here. So we'll have laundry. That's our laundry. That's dirty laundry on the bottom, a hamper that'll pull out. Towels, toilet paper, toiletries, whatever, they'll all fit on the top side. So the bottom side of the bed, the ceiling, basically, when you're sitting in the living room space, is the southwestern motif. Stephanie really, she says it over and over, she did not want to see a piece of plywood when she was sitting on the couch, because it's the ceiling, it's only 7 feet above you, it's very prominent when you're in this space. So we ended up searching Pinterest and getting some ideas for wood art, and we borrowed some ideas, we sort of modified it to our own taste. And so she picked all these colors and finishes, and it was a lot of cutting. The hardest part was just drawing it out. We just put it in CAD, and then we figured out the pattern, and then that made it easy to transcribe to the piece of, sub plywood. But then after that, it was just, measure, cut, check it, cut it again, and that's the end result. So it turned out nice. The second loft is actually, it's hard to believe, it's all gear storage. Like, it is a very big, tall, spacious loft, and it's got some cool features, but we're not, the elevator beds are primary sleeping, and the goal for this was to put our gear. So we're mountain junkies like most people, bikes, river sports, kayaking, paddleboarding. We hunt, we do backpacking, we do, hiking, 14ers. So we got a lot of gear, and we needed some place to put that. So there'll be actually some cubbies and stuff. They're going to break up that space, but the sleeping bag will have a spot. The backpack will have a spot. All that, everywhere will have a place to go when it's all said and done up there. So that side of the house, the portholes, we're going to keep that open. We will put a guest bed up there, and that'll also be like our little getaway space where we just need, sometimes you got to have your space. So that's like, I can go out there and tuck in that corner and just hang out, or she can do that, or whatever. It is a neat little space with the portholes up there. So we'll have a collapsible ladder. We don't have it shown right now, but this is what this space was intended to be left for. So a little ladder that folds down, shoves up here, or hooks. We might just hook it so you can grab it, undo it, put it right here, and then go up. That way we're not impeding the flow of all this space right here. That's a problem with a lot of tiny houses. It's kind of an afterthought. They're like, oh, I know I have to have a ladder to get to my loft, but I didn't really think about where to put it when I'm trying to move in and out. So for us, that's our solution. We're just not using that space very often, and so the hassle of having to take a ladder out just kind of outweighs keeping the feeling of openness. Sure, the lighting, lighting in a tiny house is super important. It's one of those other things people kind of have afterthoughts. They can't picture, what spaces are going to need light the most. When you come in, right when you come in, you need a light, a general light, and then you start breaking it down into task lighting. And so, like, under our bed here, we've got built-in lights. So at night, when we're watching TV or reading a book, these are just they're not super bright. They kind of, it's enough to read, but not just wash everything out and hurt your eyes at nighttime. So that's sort of our main light. We kind of had a steampunk industrial theme going with the lighting and some of the other hardware. So Steph had a lot of fun just hopping online and searching for light fixtures. The fan is actually an antique. It's like, I don't know the year, but it's like 50s, I think. It's an old desk fan. I took the base off. I fabricated a pole and redid the wiring, and it actually, once it gets going, it's sweet. It moves some air in this thing. An old Westinghouse, yeah. And I don't have it turned on, but the little oscillator, it still works too. So it'll, if I can get up there and turn it, it would just be really slow. Just moves real slow, and you can hear it, but it's nice. Everyone who's been coming through the door, they just, because it's been hot the past few days. And with the wood stove, it's very centrally located, which is good for heating the whole house. But the heat, with these high ceilings, the heat definitely stagnates up there. So that fan will blow that, that was on high, we can put it on low, and we're going to recirculate that air and get it to spread down throughout the house. These two light fixtures are antiques. We picked up from an antique store in Denver, just old barn lights, basically. Those are just cheap Home Depot sconces for now, but we bought the parts to do some insulator lights. So once again, I'm with Rocky Mountain Tiny Houses out of Durango, Colorado. You know, we're professional builders. This is our full-time job, but again, this is my personal house that I'm sharing at the show. You can follow us on Facebook, Rocky Mountain Tiny Houses, or Instagram. Greg Tiny House Guy is mine, and then Stephanie is Steph. Let's see, it's Steph's_tiny_life. Yeah, and everything will be linked in the description below.